Alright, so this is the last problem. Then I'm going to go over uh, the fourth fruit stuff again, because I think I went pretty fast with that. So we're going to go ahead and do this. So again, remember, we don't want any square roots in the denominator, so we have to get rid of the square root. So we have 2 divided by the square root of 50. So again, to get rid of the square root of 50, we need to multiply by the square root of 50 in the denominator. But whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. There it goes. So square root of 50 times the square root of 50 is just 50. Remember, the square roots cancel out. And you're left with 2 square root of 50. Now, square root of 50. Square root of 50 you can reduce. You can simplify it. So square root of 50. Either you can do it two ways. Either like make sure you get 2 of the same things, or just do it in perfect squares. Because sometimes it's easier to do perfect squares. Other times it's easier to find a pair. It all depends on you. So 50, is 25 times 2. 50 is times the square. It's 25 times 2. The square root of 25 is just 5. So this breaks down to 5 square root of 2. Okay? Because this gives you 5, and square root of 2 is just the square root of 2. So now wherever we see square root of 50, we're going to write 5 square root of 2. So this stays the same. We're going to change this to this, but then now let's put it let's work right now about all the radicals in the denominator. So we take care of this one. This one's fine. Now we have to take care of the 1 over square root of 8. So we do this one. So you have 1 divided by the square root of 8. So once again, you multiply by the square root of 8 times the square root of 8. Because what you're essentially doing, you are multiplying by 1, and multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything. So that's why this is mathematically legal, because you're still multiplying by 1. So now we see, so we do square root of 8 times square root of 8, the square roots cancel out, and you're just left with 8. 1 times the square root of 8 is the square root of 8. Now the square root of 8, we can also simplify that. The square root of 8 breaks up to the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. Now what's the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is just 2. So this becomes 2 square root of 2. So now we're going to go ahead and rewrite all this stuff. So 2 square root of 50 became 2 square root of 50 divided by 50. Now we're going to rewrite this as that. Let's just write it first. Sorry. So we have 2 square root of 50 divided by 50 minus 3 square root of 50 minus the square root of 8 over 8. Well, since we already know this stuff, we said square root of 50 is 5 square root of 2. So we're going to rewrite it. So it's 2 times 5 square root of 2 over 50 minus 3 times 5 square root of 2 minus 2 square root of 2 divided by 8. So again, we're just going to keep simplifying this. So 2 times 5 is 10. So this comes out to 10. So 10, this brings up to 10 square root of 2. This is 15 square root of 2. Alright, so we have a 10 and a 50. So how many times does 10 go into 50? Well, it goes into it 5 times. So we're going to be left with the square root of 2 over 5. Then we have minus 15 square root of 2. And then how many times does 2 go into 8? Well, it goes into it 4 times over square root of 2 divided by 4. So now all these are in square root of 2's. So now we can combine these. But now we need to have a same common denominator. So we have 5, we have 1, so remember this is over 1, and 4. So we need to say, okay, well, what's the common denominator between 5, 1, and 4? The least common factor. Least common is 20. So, right, 5 times 4 is 20. So we need to get all the denominators into 20s. So 20 minus 20 minus 20. Well, how do we get 5 into 20? Well, you need to multiply it by 4. So once again, what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So you have 4 square root of 2. How do you get 1 into 20? Well, you need to multiply by 20. So you multiply this by 20. 15 times 20 is 300. Square root of 2. And then 4, that's times 5, and this is times 5. So you have 5 square root of 2. So when you have 4 square root of 2 minus 300 square root of 2 minus 5 square root of 2. Well, 4 minus 300 is negative 296. Minus 5 is negative 301. So we have negative 301 square root of 2 divided by 20. That will be your final answer. Negative 301 square root of 2 divided by 20. Alright. Let's get a new page. Let's see how you do this. New page. Let's check. No. Alright, so now let's go over the square roots of 4, or whatever. Let's start off with cube roots. Oh, you know what? Let's start off with square roots. So square root, we don't write the 2, but we know it's there. Okay? So it's just saying, whenever you get a perfect square or a pair of the same thing, then you can take it out. So let's say x to the 5th. X to the 5th. If we write it out, it's x times x times x times x times x. Well, since it's square root, we want to take out a pair. So we want to take out 2. So that's 1 we're going to take out, and that's another x we're going to take out. So we take them outside. So this is just 1x, so that's just x. This is another x, so we multiply times x. So we have x times x, which is just x squared, and the square root of x is just the square root of x. So the square root of x to the 5th is x squared over x. X squared square root of x. So let's do a different one. Using the square root again, but this time with numbers. Let's say, 98. We do 98. So I don't already know the factors or whatever gives 98. Well, since it's even, we know we can break it up into, it's an even number, so we know we can divide by 2. So 2 times what gives me 98? Well, 9 divided by 2 is 4. You're left with a 1. So bringing down the 8 is 18. How many times? And 2 going to 18, 9 times. Okay? So square root of 98 is the same square root of 2 times 49. Well, let's break this down again, because if you don't know the square root of 497, it's fine. So this breaks down into 2. The square root of 49, or 49 is just 7 times 7. So now, once again, this is square root, so we want to find a pair. So we have one pair there, so we take it out. So we're left with 7 square root of 2. So it works the same way. So now let's do it with both numbers and variable. So let's say the square root of 60 x to the 7th. Alright, 60x to the 7th. So let's say 60. It's the same thing as saying, 6 times 10. Right, x to the 7th is just x times x times x times x times x times x times x. So now we find your pairs. So that's 1 pair, that's 2 pairs, that's 3 pairs. So we take everything out, so that's x times x times x times the square root of 6 times 10 times x. Alright? So again, these two are even, so we can do it again. We can break these down. If we simplify this, you know it's x cubed. So 6, what are the factors of 6? Well, that's 2 times 3. the factors of 10 is 5 and 2. And the x, since we couldn't take it out, it stays inside. It's going to stay inside. It's all by itself. It's lonely. So now we find a pair. So that's a 2 here, and that's a 2 there. So that's one pair. So we're going to take out a 2. So this we're going to take it out outside. So now this becomes 2x cubed. And then 3 and 5, those are not pairs. We cannot factor these out anymore. So we have to just combine them. 3 times 5 is 15. And then the x is all by itself. So it's just 15x. Alright. So we went from square root of 60x to the 7th to 2x cubed times square root of 15x. So let's do the fourth root one now. So it's the same thing, but now it's the fourth root. So let's do x to the 7th again. But since it's the fourth root, we need to get 4 of the same before we are able to take it out. So x to the 7th is just x times x times x times x times x times x times x. So remember, it's the fourth root. So we want to take out 4. We need 4 before we can take it out. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have our 4 here. So we can take it out. So we're left with x times x times x. So we take this out, it's just x. And what's left over, x times x times x, which is just x cubed. Alright, it's the same thing with numbers. Let's say, I don't know, 32. The fourth root of 32. So let's break this up. So 32 is what? That's 8 times 4. Okay? So we break this up again, because again, we still don't have 4 of the same. 8 is 4 times 2, and we say 4 is 2 times 2. And again, we still do not have 4 of the same. So now we need to break down the 4. The 4 is 2 times 2, and then we bring these 3 2's down. So now we need to get 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we have 4, so now we can take out a 2. Since we have 4 of them, now we can take it out. So this becomes a 2 outside, and then what's left over? The 2 inside. So the fourth root of 32 is 2 times the fourth root of 2. Alright, so whatever the number is outside, that's how many you need before you are able to take it out. That's pretty much all that stuff means. Just remember, you cannot have a square root in the denominator. So to get rid of it, you have to multiply it by the square root. And what you do to the bottom, you do to the top.